A very good morning, all. So let's begin with the early morning start. I think it'll be more energetic to observe the skills that the mentor is going to share it with you. And the main objective is like you need to improve on your coding practice and data structure algorithm based problem solving, which is also key for certain product based tech companies and especially the premium companies. And apart from your skill set, which is full stack, coding practice, the programming speed is also essential. Problem solving skills and data structure algorithm is essential for certain companies. Okay, so have that mindset of improving it, and even if you look at from a company's point of view, if they want to invest in a candidate, particular candidate for a better CTC, they would like to see if you are able to have very good or a strong programming rhythm, same time with the problem solving with data structural algorithm as well. Okay, so that is the main objective, and we have the mentor. Like I'll also introduce him shortly. Just before that, I think like even from yesterday's session, I was getting from the mentor that there are a lot of queries related to the hackathon task, right? See, the hackathon is supposed to be an individual performance and not just as a training thing. It's more about performing in that, how you're able to handle the pressure challenges in it. Don't think of you as a learner in that case. In that 24 hours period, you are supposed to think as even a half professional or even a full professional. In real-time projects, you will get the similar kind of requirements, right? Sometimes it might not be too accurate. You might need to make certain best possible assumptions and then the best possible solutions for that accordingly, right? So that is what we are here as a solution providers, right? So think of you as a problem solver. Okay, and it is not, nothing is accurate in terms of one-to-one matching with the requirement and the solution, right? Give the best possible solution. If possible, give additional features which you feel is value adds, right? A lot of times customers may not give you the exact requirement, okay, but if you improvise and give them the additional, it'll be bonus for them. It's a double advantage for you to satisfy the customer. Okay, so think in that terms and raise like especially the documentation reading part is challenging. I'm not saying it is going to be easy, right? But that is how it is going to be in real case as well. Okay, so try to go through that, try to make the best possible assumptions, and only then you will be able to have that practice. It is again not like a university or the semester wherein we just follow the book type, right? It's not like that. So it's a real world you are entering. So try to adapt to that and do the quick learning part to face the challenges. Okay, yeah, so that's gone. Now we need to introduce with the new concepts, especially with data structural algorithm. So like we have the mentor, Mr. Chandramoli. He's an expert in facing a lot of competitive programs, and especially with data structural algorithm based problem solving. He's gone through and cracked product based companies, like especially he's currently in Amazon. So he has tremendous experience in terms of problem solving. Try to utilize his best knowledge and just maintain a simple discipline, like the doubt clarification should happen once the mentor had opened up for that particular period of time. Okay, so he will have a flow which need to be followed, which need to be appreciated. Like after that, you can raise the query when he's opening up for doubts, right? So in the meantime, if you have, you can mention it in the chat, not an issue. Okay, so with that, like I'll introduce yeah, I think I'll hand over to Mr. Chandramoli. It's all yours, Chandramoli, you can take it over.
Okay, thanks, Mahesh. Good morning, everyone. That was a great introduction, but yeah, so I'll be here to teach you guys data structures and algorithms, not just teach, uh, you know, uh, more like inspire you so that it will be useful for you even after this session, right? So before I start, is my voice audible? Is there any noise, background uh, noise? Okay, give me a minute. I just fixed that. Is it better now? Okay, great. So yeah, so uh, okay, yeah. Good morning, everyone. Again, and yeah. So today's class will just be, just for understanding what is required, what is expected out of you, not just from this session, but even once you attend interviews and what all things. Because the good thing is there are a lot of resources outside. The bad thing is there are a lot of resources outside, right? So it's a bit confusing. So I have been, been coding for 8 years now and 6 years in data science and algorithms, and I constantly follow what are all the things that are happening around this, and I constantly code as well. And I attended a lot of interviews, which I'll cover later today. But yeah, so I'll try to clear whatever I personally have faced. It may not be like 100% right, but at least I can, say a few things which I have experienced personally and I have heard from my friends, right? So I have a good friend circle too, where people are working at Google, Facebook, those kind of companies as well. So I'll just combine their learnings, my learnings, everything, and try to put it as crisp as possible. So yeah, to today's class, the participants are high, which is great. Usually there'll be a lot of interaction, which is really good because I usually have a flow, but based on what you interact, the flow will change, which is a good thing, right? So yeah. So with that, as Mahesh called out, I'm a software engineer at Amazon for 2 years now. So yeah. So let's get started. So today is as I said, this is a non-technical session. We just have to understand what is required, uh, right? And before starting, one more thing I wanted to say, which is so this session, apart from today, will be for 5 days. And since it's a weekday session, it will be back to back. So keep some notes or something so that you don't forget. So usually when you have back to back, you will not have time to, a lot of time to prepare. So in between the sessions, spend some time so that you don't forget it. Usually you won't forget it because it's not just theory. It's more like how you should think that kind of a session, right? So yeah. So yeah. So since it'll be back to back, it will be it'll be a bit difficult. I do understand. And second thing is compared to things like full stack or React or or something which is a technology, right? So this is not a technology. So this is uh, more like a base of computer science. So data structures and algorithms is a base of computer science. And unlike technologies where when you learn React, right? So you learn some 10 concepts, say what is hooks, what is state, what is props, those kind of things. And after that, you can start doing projects. But data structure and algorithms, since it's a base of computer science, it's not like a top. It's more like a concept than just a technology. Meaning, an algorithm which was found 100 years before is still being used and still being relevant, and it will be still relevant after 100 years too, right? So it's more like understanding how computers work, how you should think, and those kind of things, right? So yeah, coming back, yeah. So as I said, I'll first finish whatever I wanted to finish. It'll take maybe 30 to 45 minutes, and after that, I'm open for questions. So today's class will be mostly you guys talking, right? More than me talking, because as you say what you want, I'll try to tweak the course, right? And yeah, so again, right? So even though the session is for 2 hours, it can be less or more than that based on the day. So try to accommodate 10 15 minutes after the session too, so that you get more out of it, right? And second thing is I usually start at 9 because from 11 I have back-to-back meetings. But today alone, I think it was too late to announce. So from tomorrow we'll start at 9. You'll get official announcement too. But yeah, right. So with that, we'll start. Um, so yeah, before starting, I just wanted to you just keep the questions with you as well, so that if I miss, you can ask again later, right? So yeah, so coming back, so I just have two questions. One is, how many of you here are experienced? How many of you here are students? Experience, I mean, experience in software development alone. If you have some other experience, you need not count in. Like, how much experience do you have in software development alone? If you don't have any experience, you can say zero. You can just type it out in the chat. And okay, so most of them are zero. I see one 3.5 or something, 3.8. Okay. Okay. So yeah. So I see one 3.8 and one 1.8, 1.5. So others are zero, right? So that is one part. Okay, I'll take a note of it. Second part is I hope everyone here is for it to get into product-based companies, right? Uh, Anyone, if yes, you need not answer. If no, then you can say what you are expecting out of this session. Okay, so everyone wants to get into product-based company, which is great, right? Okay. Uh, okay, so if okay, okay, so I think only two people here are experienced. So okay, so you two alone will have a little different path to get into product-based company, but I'll cover that path too, a bit in a short span. Right. So overall, everyone has a very similar path except those two. Those two is having a little different path, but others are having, and those two still have to follow this path, right? So I'll say how that differs, but everyone is going to is having a similar path, right? To follow. But one more thing is, as I said, this course is not just throwing out theories on you, right? Why means there are better things to learn theory as well, right? In the internet, you have MIT, you have Stanford, right? But what other courses usually don't do is how do you think for a problem, right? So usually it will be this is a problem, this is a solution. Okay. So how did you think for that problem? Why means there'll be thousands and thousands of problems. It is not feasible to solve everything. But once you know how did you come up with that approach, what was your thought process? That thought process could help you solve another 100 to 200 problem, right? So it's like solving 200 problems in one problem, right? So that is what this course will be focused on, just understanding and giving out the solution. Just going through the question and giving out the solution is not going to help you a lot, right? So those things can be done either by some blogger or someone, right? But here we'll focus more on how do you think about a problem so that you know um, you can be on your own after this course, right? So yeah. So coming back, that is great. Okay, so this is one part. Second part is uh, how many of you? I know everyone. I think everyone knows what is product based company, and that's why you want to get into it. But do you want to? Anyone wants a explanation on what is the difference between service and product based company? Like what happens internally in each of those? Okay. Okay, so let's start with service-based company. So what is a service-based company? As the name suggests, it will do some service. So what kind of service? Say there is a bank in America. Okay, so they usually don't have a IT team, right? The team which builds apps for them, right? Or something, some portal, something for them, right? And it's not feasible for them to have a separate IT portal because usually when they create once, they'll just reuse that for a really long time, right? And it does not make sense to hire few people for that alone and then keep them idle. So what these people not just in US but yeah in any country, right? So what does these people do is they maybe visit one company in India or something and they sign a contract, right? So what I'm saying is a very high level thing. So what does that contract mean? This contract mean, okay, you build, I'll give you design, this is how the app should look like, this is how the portal should look like, there should be a button here, if I click the button this should happen, those kind of things they'll give it to you. They'll also give the data obviously. And that company which is in India which is going to do is a service based company, so it is going to do a service. So that company will have employees. So that company will have a manager, everything, leadership, employees, management, everything. So this management will think on, given the design, given everything, uh, is the team finishing it on time, right? So they have a contract. They'll say, okay, I'll give you this much. You finish it within 2 months or 5 months, and after that you have to give support. So what is support? If there is any bug, you have to fix it, right? So those kind of contract. So what happens is, whatever as a developer working in a service based company, you will not have a lot of control over the product. Why? Means everything is kind of uh, fixed by your client. So who is your client? The team which wants an app, right? So the bank is your client. So they usually you don't have a lot of control, because they usually say whatever they want, like completely end to end, more like a BRD. They'll give it to you, a business requirement document. So everything will be fixed. That is one part. Second part is, usually they'll have a call between you two, and they'll make sure that you guys are on the same page, right? So this is a service based company. So that's why in a service based company they'll not have a product of their own, right? Because they're just doing service, right? So they're not creating any product. They're just okay, they're just doing some service, and after some time they just move on to another project and another project and another project, right? So this is how it goes, right? So this is the first part. This is service based company. So usually what happens in service based companies, you'll be put into some domain. So that domain can be Java or SAP or Salesforce or something, right? Uh, you need not know a lot of these terms, so you get the idea, right? So usually you'll be divided between these domains. Usually it happens, randomly. After some time, once you get experience, you'll be put in the domain again and again, right? Because you're already an expert in that domain, right? So this is what it happens behind the scenes. So yeah, so you'll create the project, you'll finish it. After that, you move on to another project, and it goes on, right? So this is a basic idea of a service-based company. The only thing is, that company, the US company or the bank will pay some money for the contract to Indian company. This Indian company will take a cut and then give you some money, right? So usually it will be developer hours. So in 1 hour, how much should I pay for one developer, right? So something like that. So this is a service-based company. As I said, the disadvantage here is, the advantage here is, you'll have a proper requirement, like what you want. There will not be ambiguities. The disadvantage is you'll not have a lot of control as an engineer, right? So it'll be more like you are said what to do, you will be doing, right? That is one part. Okay, so now let's come to product-based company, right? Let's say Google, right? So Google is a product-based company. So why it's a product-based company? They have their own product, right? Google Search, Google Maps, Google Photos, etc. Right? So they have their own product. So what happens here is there'll be something called the product team, right? So what does this product team do? They come up with some ideas. Say in Google Photos, they are coming up with some face recognition, something. They already have it, but just for some example. So what is this face recognition going to do? This face recognition will detect faces in the photos and then group it into different names, right? So in Google Photos, you might have seen, okay, is this you? Is this your friend? Someone? Is this your friend? So that it will be easier for them to group, right? So if you want to see all your friends' photos, you can just click on your friend's face and all the photos of your friends will be available, right? Say they introduce that feature, right? Once they introduce this feature, what does this product team do is they'll see how the interaction is with that uh, idea, right? So usually these every team, right? Say Google Photos team will have a 5 year, 10 year, 15 year, and long-term goals, right? So what does this long-term goal mean? This should be the best app in the industry. This app should be able to. This should be the repository of all the photos in the world, something like that, right? So what does this 10-year plan look like? 10-year plan will look something like, okay, so Google Photos should be able to, detect the detect some PDF and get the text from it, and then try to assess something like that, right? So it will be not, which is not available today. I can't think of something, but yeah, you get the idea. And 5-year plan will be much more, drill down. So what are all the PDF you are going to take? Okay, for now, I'm just going to take your monthly bank statement and then going to message you what is your monthly bank amount or something, right? So that is Google Photos or Gmail, right? Anything. So what does they'll have 3 year, 1 year, 6 months, every plan, right? So what does this product team do is they work towards that plan. So who comes up with this idea? The management, the product, the engineering team. Everyone will sit and come up with these ideas. Okay, 5 years, how should it look like? 10 years, how should it look like, right? So what happens is the product team will say, okay, Google is going to, Google Photos is going to release this feature, and they'll discuss this with the engineering team. So what does the engineering team do is, your idea is great, but I can't implement it. Can you tone it down a bit? Can I change this here? So what happens is you'll not be changing the things in the portal or something. You'll be changing the product's behavior itself. Say the product manager is saying that, okay, I have to do this. The engineer will say, okay, this is not possible today. This is not a very easy thing to do. Can we do it something like this? So it will be more like a all-round development for you. So why this is important is as you grow, right? As engineer you grow, it's not just about how good you are in technical skills, right? So it's how good you are in leadership skills, because you can code all the things in the world, right? But if you don't have a proper marketing strategy or proper leadership skills to handle the pressure, the product is not going to go really well, right? So that's the basic idea. So in a product-based company, it will be much more all-rounder, right? So you'll have a lot of control. So if the customer is not liking something, you will be there for the customer, saying, okay, this is not what you want. Okay, I'll change this. I'll change that, right? So these kind of things. So this is the basic difference between service and a product-based company, right? So you'll have a lot of control over what do you want, right? What as an engineering team you want, right? So yeah. So this is a basic difference. So is there any doubts so far? Okay. So I see some reaction in the chat. What does it mean? Okay. Anyway, I am not sure what this reaction means, but yeah, great. Okay. So this is a basic difference, right? So you get the idea, right? It's not just about uh, as an engineer you'll grow, right? Okay, great. Thank you. Okay. So yeah. So coming back, so I have a few things to give you guys. So if you already started preparing, if you're already, if you already started preparing, if you're already, into the thing, you'll be knowing few things here and there. I'll try to clarify it for you guys. If you're really new, then it's great as well, right? So yeah. Okay. Coming back. Okay. So coming back, I have four things to cover in broad. So I'll cover one by one. Um, so yeah. So what is this data structures and algorithms? So why is it important, right? So there are a few questions around it. So what is this data structures and algorithms, right? So say you are designing some Netflix, okay? So you are the designer of Netflix. So what are all the things you'll be worrying about, right? So designing Netflix is not an easy problem. You all know that, right? So it's not just about streaming some video, right? So why I'm saying that is, say tomorrow Money Heist is releasing, right? The new season is releasing. Um, so everyone will be watching season 5, episode 1, right? So what will happen is that particular video file will be having a lot of hits. So what can happen is some service can go down because of this. So what they'll do is if tomorrow something really famous is releasing, the Netflix team will working behind the scenes to make it available and make it maybe cache it somewhere or make it available in multiple regions. So that even if two regions go down, you'll be able to see these, right? So what they'll scale up the services, they'll do a lot of things behind the scenes. So usually we miss out these things, right? So what happens maybe say they are hosting on AWS, right? So everyone knows that Netflix is hosting on AWS. So what they'll do is they'll increase the resources. They'll make sure that they ramp up in other regions as well, right? So those kind of things they'll be doing behind the scenes, right? So how is it related to data success and algorithms, right? So any engineering thing is a problem, right? So anything you see today was a problem once. Say Google search, right? So no one would have thought that you can search, but it was a problem once, right? But now it's working. So any engineering thing is a problem, but the problem as such can't be solved in one shot, right? Say Google search can't be done in one day, right? It needs years and years of hard work, 10 years, 15 years of hard work to make it come to a better shape, right? So what they'll do is they'll take a big problem, these product-based companies, they break it down into smaller pieces. These smaller pieces, they'll again break it down into much more smaller pieces. So what are all those pieces? Say Netflix, right? So they have to make sure that they have premium content, they have free. I don't think they have free content, but just for example, right? Uh, Premium content, and they should have security so that no one is using. They should have the count. They should have different types of premium membership. So all these things, but they can't release everything in one shot, right? So they'll see which is possible today, right? So in that they'll again see which is possible today, right? So likewise they'll take a very big problem and break it down into smaller pieces, right? And they'll small those smaller pieces and they combine it to get to a big shape, right? Say for example, if you ask Alexa for a song today, right? So say play some song on Spotify, right? So behind the scenes it's not just hitting one service. So behind the scenes it's hitting 20 services, right? Or even more than that. So there'll be one service which is finding that song. There'll be another service which is contacting Spotify. There'll be another service, sending your tokens so that this is your device asking for authentication, for security, and there'll be a lot of things happening in the scenes, right? So all these small things which are considered to be sub problems should combine to give the actual result, right? So if it exists in isolation, there's no use of it unless it combines. So not just solving those smaller problems, but combining those smaller problems to get to a bigger problem is engineering, right? Is at least software engineering. So that's how I see as I see any software, right? It can be even a small app, but even in that app there'll be sub problems, right? So that is like problem solving, right? So that is how good you are as a problem solver, right? So what is your problem solving ability? How good is your problem solving ability, right? So that is the main area which these product companies interviews focus on, right? So for that they use data success and algorithms as one of the way, right? So why do they use this is usually the data success and algorithms on the whole from the outside looks like a single problem, but you can't solve it in one shot. Usually it will be smaller pieces. If you solve those smaller pieces, you can combine and solve the bigger problem, right? So yeah, so that's why they use data success and algorithms. So for people who are new to this, uh, what is data success and algorithms? So any problem, you'll have some steps to solve it, right? So any problem you have to solve it completely, meaning uh, if you're designing Netflix, you can't say that Netflix can't handle 5 million people at once, right? Not more than 5 million people. So what will happen is during the weekends it will break, right? So you can't say that this system will work only on certain days. That's not a very good way to solve a problem, right? And even as a product, it's not going to work out. So what is the problem? So how do you solve a problem? You should have clear steps on what you're going to do, and it should work always. If the case which you are giving is not applicable, it should also throw some proper error, right? So if it is not signing in, it should say why it's not signing in, right? So those kind of things. So any problem should have some steps to solve it. So that step is actually called algorithm, right? So whatever step you follow, whatever step you do, as long as it works always and it has proper handling of error messages and other things, then it's called algorithm, right? And every problem will have some data to deal with, right? So when you sign in, your username and password is the data, right? When you click on some title in Netflix, that click is also data, right? So how many clicks are being clicked? So those kind of data and all they'll take. Okay. So how do you structure this data so that it's easier for you to access it, right? So that is called data success. So on the whole, it's just how do you solve a problem using the steps you have and how you are going to structure the data to make it easier for you to solve the problem, right? So this is actually problem solving, right? And data success, since it kind of matches with this idea, they use this way to they use this concept to test your problem solving ability, right? So the first point is this is a very good way to understand how good a problem solver you are, right? So good thing about problem solving is it comes with practice. It's not like you're just born with it, right? So it's not something like that, right? So it comes with practice. The more problem you solve, the more you get hit, the more you get down, the more you raise up, the more mistakes you learn from, and yeah, the next time you'll not make the same mistake, right? So that's how it goes. So it's a good way to test your problem solving ability, right? And how good you are in breaking bigger problems into smaller pieces, right? So usually what happens is some people, if they are thrown into bigger problems, they kind of struggle, right? So how you are calm in that area, right? So that's why I'll come back to it, but that's why these product based companies will be very stressful, right? So because what happens is when people are thrown with these bigger problems, they kind of get stressed out and they kind of break down, right? So how good you are in not breaking down is what they'll test, right? Not physically, but yeah, more emotionally, right? So yeah, so which all companies use these data success algorithms around for interviews? Almost all the product based companies. Why? Means it has been working for big companies like Amazon, Google, Microsoft for maybe 20 years now. Not 20 years, but maybe 15 years now. So these smaller companies also kind of since it's working for bigger companies, they are just adapting that, right? So yeah, so this is why DSN algo is important. So now I think you might have got an idea on why this DSN algo is important. But yeah, so any doubts in this? Okay, FANG means Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, Google. So this is not a engineering term. This is used actually. It's like a pride kind of a thing where people say I work at FANG, but usually it's not that much proud to be in these companies. Why I'll say this FANG is actually a mm, not an engineering term. It was usually it was found in the Wall Street for the amount of rise in stock these companies saw over the years, right? So these tech companies saw a lot of rise in stock over the years. So they got this fancy term called FANG, but these engineers use it as a way to show off. So yeah, so FANG is Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, and Google. So if you see these stock over the past maybe 10 years, it will be like skyrocketing or something. It will be like unusual compared to other companies. So yeah. Any other doubts? Again, right? So I'll just say one thing since someone asked here. So people usually think life is settled once you reach here and those kind of things, but that's not usually. So that side of the story no one talks about. Um, as in a product-based company, you'll be having a lot of responsibilities. So in service-based company, the good thing is the responsibilities will be very clear, right? Because the client will know what to do, you'll know what to do because it's client's money. So he'll not be spending a lot of time. It's your money also because you can't stretch the project. So it will be usually clear set of responsibilities. But in product-based companies, the responsibilities will kind of fall on you as an engineer or as anyone, right? So if the product manager is not working properly, then it falls on management. Management is not working properly, then it falls on engineer. You get the idea, right? So there'll be a lot of responsibilities. At least I personally feel that a lot of things are in my mind, even in the weekends, even when I'm not working. So that those kind of things will happen. That is dependent on team, company, and everything. The good thing is, if you like taking responsibilities, it's a good place to be in apart from the money you get, right? So obviously they pay more because it's directly from the customer, right? So yeah, there's no middleman here. So yeah, you obviously get paid more. Uh, so again, right? So there is no comparison between service and product-based companies. People usually think product-based company is better or something. Yeah, it's usually better because as a pay-wise, you are like paid 2x, 3x, 4x, 5x, even as a fresher. So yeah, yes and no, but yeah, it depends on what your personality is, right? So if you like taking responsibilities, you'll be working. And usually when I what I personally like is I like being around customers, right? So it is like direct interaction with the customer. So if customer is not able to run a song on Spotify, they'll ping me, okay? Not directly, but some indirect ways. So I like taking, okay, why it didn't work for them, what happened to them, right? So this is not actually an engineer's job, but since it's a product-based company, you can't say that, okay, it's not my job. Tell a support engineer to do this. No, you can't say this, right? So yeah, so it depends on the company too. Some companies have clear responsibilities, but yeah. So you get what I'm trying to say, right? So since you have a lot of responsibilities, sometimes some responsibility will land on you, right? So yeah. Uh, okay, so keep these questions for the last. I'll definitely answer. Okay, so I have a few questions. So yeah. Okay, so coming back, I think I'll move to the next slide, which is what to expect in an interview, right? Okay, so anyone wants an explanation on how a product-based company interview life cycle looks like what happens from the start to the end? Okay, great. Yeah, so I have attended a lot of product-based companies, maybe 20, 30, I don't know. I attended big companies like Google, Microsoft, Goldman Sachs, Amazon, uh, and high-paying startups, right? So these startups like Grab, CureFit. So these are like high-paying startups, and I attended Zoho also. So yeah, so from all these things, most of the companies followed a very, very similar pattern. And I also read a lot of interviews in about Facebook and other companies as well. So yeah, so I'll try to consolidate everything and put it into a common pattern. So, but whenever you attend any interview, please do confirm with the interviewer what they are going to ask, how many rounds it will be, and those kind of things, right? So the common pattern goes something like this. The first one, somehow the recruiter finds you. So how to get noticed, I'll cover it separately. But somehow the recruiter finds you, and what happens is the recruiter say, okay, I have a job posting which is looking very similar to what I mean, your profile is looking very similar to what I want. So are you ready for an interview, right? So usually when you say yes, what they usually do is they'll send you a coding kind of a link. So this coding link will be posted on some platform. So that platform can be HackerRank, HackerEarth, something, right? So for people who are new to HackerRank, it's a HackerRank or some portal. So it's some portal where they can host the questions and you can answer from your home, right? By logging in or something, right? So usually it will be hosted on HackerRank. What happens is you go and so usually it will be they'll say okay, finish it within 7 days or 25 days, something like that. But once you start, you have to finish it in one go, right? So you can't pause the test and come back, right? So usually it will be for 90 or 120 minutes just for initial screen, right? So there'll be a lot of thousands and thousands of people applying. You can't invite everyone to the on-site, so they usually do a lot of filtering through this online coding test, right? So usually it will have coding tests and MCQs, depends on the company. Some companies have only coding rounds, I mean coding things, and some companies will have coding and MCQs. So these MCQs will be mostly data structures and algorithms or OS or DBMS or something. And there'll be coding questions, and coding questions will be very, very similar to what you see on Codekata, right? So I think everyone would have seen Codekata. If you have not, you should be having access. Go and see any question. So most of the questions will be something like that. And usually in the first round, the coding round, online coding round, it will not be super difficult, right? So it will be maybe easy or easy medium, right? So yeah, coming back, you'll be having maybe 2, 3 questions and 10 MCQs, and you should solve everything in 90 minutes. Usually the questions will be easy so that they don't, filter out too much, right? So yeah, so you have to finish it within 90 minutes. So usually they have a cutoff, say 70 out of 100 or something, depends on the test as well, right? So test is easy, the cutoff will be higher, and there'll be these hacker rank and other things, right? So good hosting sites have an engine which runs in the background. It's an automated engine. So from whatever code you write in the coding round, it will kind of judge how good your coding style is, right? So I don't know what algorithm it uses, but it uses some algorithm to find how good your uh, coding style is. Okay. So yeah, it somehow finds your coding style and it gives some band to you, say green, yellow, red, something, right? So usually they take that into consideration, but most of the people will pass pass that screening. So it just boils down to how much you have scored and how much is the cutoff. So if you're more than that cutoff, they'll call you for onsite. So since it's right now it's not a normal time, so everything is happening online. But usually what happens is they'll invite you to the nearest office. So if the nearest office is not in your city, they'll usually accommodate your flight and hospitality and other things, flight charges and staying, the hotel charges, everything they'll accommodate. So what happens is, say it will be in one day because you're traveling to another city, right? So they don't want you to be there for a longer time. So usually I'll just say one example. Let's say tomorrow you have an on-site. So what happens is usually it will start at 10, 10 to 11, 11 to 12. So usually there'll be 4 to 5 rounds. And there'll be HR round if needed, right? So maybe for safer side, you can say it as 6 rounds, 5 technical and 1 HR. Usually it will be 4 rounds as well, four technical and 1 HR, right? So 10 to 11, 11 to 12, maybe 12 to 1, you'll be having lunch break, and 1 to 2 and 2 to 3. It will be something like this, right? So every interview will be for 1 hour. Uh, and after that 1 hour, the next interview will come, right? So it's not like you can't extend the interview. I mean, it's like you can't extend the interview, right? You should show your capabilities within that 1 hour, right? So I'll just take an example. Say tomorrow you have an interview at 10 a.m. So you go there at 9 a.m. You finish all the formalities. So usually you'll be allocated some conference room or some room, and the interviews will be rolling. Okay. So at 10 a.m. one interview will come, right? And at 11 a.m. the next interview will come to your room, and maybe 1 hour you'll be having lunch break, and 1 p.m. another interview will come to the same room, and 2 p.m. another interview will come to the same room. And yeah, so usually it goes something like this, but depends on the company, it changes, right? depending on the company, it changes. So coming back, so I'll just take one round. So the good thing is all these 4 rounds will be very similar if you're a fresher in this field. Okay. So usually if you're a fresher, you'll be taken as a junior engineer, which is SDE1 or SWE1. Okay. Software development engineer 1 or software engineer 1. They have different names. Okay. So usually we'll be taken as a junior engineer. Junior engineer, it's pretty simple. One round into 4 or into 5 and one HR round, you'll be done, right? So that's how it looks for a junior engineer. I think there are two people who are experienced. For 1.5, usually you'll be taken as a junior engineer, because for the next level, the minimum criteria is 2 years, and the minimum is 2 years. But even if you have 3-4 years, and if you don't have a design experience, you'll be counted as a junior engineer, right? Right. So for these two people alone, you'll be having one lesser algorithmic round and one extra design round. Okay. So for other juniors, for junior engineer position, you'll be having all algorithmic round. Uh, for uh, for people who are experienced, who are trying for the next level, maybe SDE2 or SWE2, there'll be one design round itself, right? There'll be one design round in place of the algorithmic round, right? So design round, I'm not going to cover as part of this. You can Google search how it looks like. But yeah, so coming back, so even for you guys, you'll be having maybe 3 rounds of algorithmic rounds, right? So yeah, so coming back, so you'll be having algorithmic rounds. The good thing is, as I said, it will not be, every round will not be different. So if you are prepared for one round, you are prepared for all the rounds, right? So how does this one round look like, right? So usually what happens is, you will be given a laptop in that conference room. So in that laptop, you'll be given a link, which is a live coding link. So what is a live coding link? So when you type, the interviewer will also have the same link. So when you type, he can see. When he types, he can see, something like that, right? So he will be having his own, he or she will be having his own laptop. You will be having your own laptop. And when you code, he can see. When he or she codes, you can see, right? So yeah, so usually the interviewer comes into the room. First 5 minutes, you give an intro about yourself. After that, he'll throw a question at you. So what kind of a question? Mostly algorithmic question. What are you see on code kata? Some kind of a question, right? So the question will be very vague, right? So one first thing is the question will be very vague. In code kata, you'll be having a very clear idea, right? So this is the size of the array. This is the number it can be. So those kind of things, the interviewer will not say to you, right? Why means any engineering problem is vague, right? So you don't know how many people are going to come, you don't know how many people are going to interact, you don't know what are all the things the people are going to do. You have to cover everything. So usually engineering problem will be vague. So at that point in time, the first thing the interviewer will observe is what are all the questions you are asking about the question to understand the question, right? So what are all the questions you are going to ask about the question, right? So that's why they are keeping it as vague, right? Um, so the first part is don't jump into conclusions or assume things. So first 5 minutes, spend that extra maybe 2-3 minutes to understand the question, what they're trying to ask, what are all the things that can happen in the question, whether the question can have duplicate numbers, something like that, right? Depending on the question. So 5 minutes intro gone, 5 minutes you clear and get the question. So after 10 minutes, you're clear with the question, right? So after that, the interviewer will be silent. Why means, so why means he or she expects you to talk, right? So one thing I wanted to clear is interviews are not there to, it's not, they're not against you, right? So they also want you to join. So they'll also give you hints if you're stuck. But unless you speak out or unless you share your ideas, they don't know what you're thinking and they can't help you, right? So when the interviewer wants to give hints, you should have some input, so that based on the input, you can give the hints, right? So usually next 20 minutes, you should talk out what you're thinking about the question, how we are going to solve it, right? So the next 20 minutes is for approach. So you have to say what approach you're going to take, what are all the things you'll be going to focus, those kind of things. The interviewer will guide you if you're not going in the right direction, right? So usually the next 20 minutes is for approach, right? That is one part. Second part is the approach should be efficient approach. How to know whether a given approach is efficient or not, we'll see tomorrow, right? But coming back, say you come up with some approach, the interviewer will say, okay, this is good approach. Meaning, within 20 minutes, you have to freeze the approach, right? So unless your approach is not satisfactory to the interviewer, he'll not let you code, right? So till that part, you'll not be allowed to code, right? Uh, why this is happening is, once you get into these companies, say you will be designing some systems. So what kind of a system? Say security for a system, right? So first you have to write a design document. And in this design document, you have to cover every aspect of the design, right? Every aspect of the security you're going to consider. And then you will have to have a meeting with your teammates or the senior engineers and then freeze the design. So what is freezing the design? They'll agree, okay, this design is good. You will agree that, okay, these are the things I'm going to do. And I'm not going to do anything extra, anything less. Okay. Why this is important is first is for documentation purpose. So if say something happens to that engineer or that engineer move out of the company, someone will know what does that engineer was doing and someone can come and implement it, right? Second thing is, whenever I think you might have noticed it by yourself, but usually what happens is if you start coding without having a proper approach, you'll be deleting it, you'll again be adding something, you'll be deleting it. It'll take a lot of time, first thing. Second thing is there'll be a lot of room for bugs, right? Because you haven't thought through what will happen. And there can be blockers also where you can't move forward. So those kind of things will happen. So that's why they prefer freezing the approach. So same thing they'll expect you in an interview also. So before you start coding, you have to freeze the approach. So what is freezing the approach? The interviewer should say, okay, I'm fine with your approach, right? So say you do this in 20 minutes, right? So it's already half an hour, past the starting time. So right now you're on approach, right? So next thing is you have to code, right? So one FAQ I get is, can you code in any language? Yes, because what happens is this live coding link I told, right? So it will be more like a Google Docs. So it will not be a compiler. So usually they don't compile and see whether your code is working, right? So they just see how your coding style is, what all the things are you able to implement your ideas, right? So that's the basic agenda. So yeah. So coming back, so you will be given a coding link, right? So you will start coding. So usually they accept most of the languages, but there are some companies who prefer, you know, few set of languages. So what are those few sets? If you already know Python, JavaScript, C, C++, Java, any of these, then I think you are good. Okay. So most of the online coding round will contain these languages, and most of the interviewers will also be okay with these languages. But if you're using something very unique like Ruby or Go or Lang, something, right? So you can check with the HR, right, before the interview round. So coming back, you write code for it. So what are the things they'll be seeing in your code? First thing is, are you implementing whatever you frozen upon, whatever the approach you froze upon, right? Why means that is what is needed, right? So you can't freeze on approach and implement on approach, right? That is one part. Second part is, are you handling all the corner cases? So what is a corner case, right? So what happens is, as I said, as a engineering problem, you should handle all the cases, right? If something is going to break because of something, it is going to be a bad experience. So what those are all corner cases, right? So same thing in code kata question also, you might find some corner case. So for example, what if the array is empty? What is the array is having negative numbers? So these are all some frequent corner cases, but this corner case depends on the question, right? So how are you handling all the corner cases, right? So that is the second part. Third part is how good your coding style is. So it need not be like super, you need not spend a lot of time on it. The easier way to have a good coding style is breaking the pieces into functions or methods which can do repetitive work and having a good variable name. So what is a good variable name? If it is number of something, number of elements, you can put n num of elements, something like that. So which is descriptive. So without comments itself, your code should be able to be understandable by an intern. So whenever, what I look for is, if a new intern who is coming into the company can understand your code, then your code is good. Okay. So that's like a basic criteria most of the interviews use. So yeah, I'll also say that to you, right? So all these things should happen within 20 minutes, meaning you have to code it, you have to handle all the corner cases, and then say you're done. So whenever you say you're done, it means that, okay, this is the best piece of code you have. So when you say you are done, and if the interviewer is coming up with some case where it will not work, then it's a red flag, right? Because if you do the same thing, then what will happen is your code will go to customers and it's going to break that, which is a very bad experience, right? So yeah, so whenever you say you're done, you just take, before saying you're done, just take 2 minutes, couple of minutes to go through your code and understand that you haven't missed out any cases, right? So yeah, so this is one thing which I wanted to cover, but yeah. So before you say done, please don't. Before you say done, take some time. Take that extra 2 minutes, which is going to help you a lot, right? So once you say done, if there is no breaking case, if there is no corner case which you have missed, what will interviewer do is he'll just give some random case and he'll say to dry run your code. So what is dry running your code? So you just have to say what is your code doing every line by line by using that example, right? So yeah, so using that as an input, you have to say what will happen and what will be the output, right?
So this happens in another 5 minutes. So 5 minutes for intro, 5 minutes for understanding the question, 20 minutes for approach, 20 minutes for coding, and 5 minutes for dry running the code, right? So last 5 minutes, you can ask any questions to the interviewer, right? So the first 5 minutes, which is you introducing yourself, and the last 5 minutes, which you ask the interviewer, these two 5 minutes are not counted towards your evaluation, right? So other 50 minutes are counted towards your evaluation, right? So usually, uh, this is what will happen in 1 hour, and if you multiply it by 4 or 5 rounds, depending on the company, the same thing will happen back to back, right? So that's how a product-based company interview looks like, right? So one more thing which I wanted to cover is how do I know that one interview went really well? That solely depends on the interviewer. So I'll say what happens behind the scenes a bit later, but yeah, it depends on the interviewer, right? So yeah, so this is how a 1 hour of interview looks like, and you multiply it by how many number of rounds you have. And HR round is something which is subjective, so I'm not going to cover, but yeah. So this is how a product-based company end-to-end looks like. So usually these companies will not give you the results immediately. They'll just evaluate and then get back with you with the results. And after that, the CTC and the negotiation happens and those kind of things happens, right? So yeah, so this is how a basic interview looks like. Any doubts in this? Okay. Yeah, the number of rounds depends on the company, as I said, right? Yeah, you should ask. I mean, it's not that you should ask because you're not anyway going to get evaluated. The question is, in last 5 minutes, should you ask question? So that is not going to, that is not going to be evaluated. So even if you don't ask, it's fine. But it's a good way to understand. So you have spent a lot of effort, right? So you have prepared, you have done everything. So if you want to know something which you can't find outside, maybe in the internet, you can ask. So what can be what does your typical day look like? Work day look like? Like how many hours of meeting you have, or something which is not very personal, and something which is not, which will not make the interview awkward, right? So those kind of questions you can ask. So usually companies don't follow aptitude test. Even in the first round itself, they prefer, you coding and doing this and algo kind of questions. But I think Zoho alone has first round aptitude test, I guess. I don't know whether it's relevant now. It was 2-3 years back, but yeah, Zoho alone has aptitude test in the first round. And after that, anyway, it's going to be, coding round. So yeah. So the major part will always be coding round. Zoho alone has a different, completely different interview experience. So you can look it up on internet. But yeah, whatever I said, maybe matches to 90% of the companies. That number is just a number, but yeah, you get the idea, right? Most of the companies. Okay, so some questions which are not relevant to whatever I took, I'll just take it later. Okay, so that you don't. Okay, so yeah, so I see few questions, but I'll again take it later. Okay, as I said, so I'll just finish whatever I wanted to. So how to get noticed? So this is something very very subjective. And there is no golden rule for it. It depends on your luck. It depends on being at the right place at the right time. And but one thing is, if you can get a referral, then that's the best way to get noticed. So if you get a referral, most of the times, 99% of the times, you'll be getting an interview, right? So try to get a referral from a person who is working in that company. If you don't know that person, ping the recruiter on LinkedIn and say you're interested in position. Can you help me get an interview? Don't ping everyone. Just you know the etiquette, right? So yeah. Um, or if you ping some random engineer working in that company, you can also ping him and ask, ping him or her and ask, right? So those kind of things you can do, but there is no golden rule here, right? So how does a typical interview look like? I already covered. So what do they expect from a candidate? As I said, how good a problem solver you are, how good you are on feet, right? So on feet, like how good you are in changing the position, adapting to new situation, those kind of things. So if you see, right, even though they ask technical questions, what they look for is actually non-technical skills, which is how good a problem solver you are, how good a leader you are, how good you are for, changes. So how quickly you can change yourself based on whatever is happening around you. So those kind of things, right? So, okay. So what happens internally, right? So this is one thing which people usually don't talk about. So I'll say, right? So most of the times what happens is the interview will be randomly assigned, right? So there is a candidate, it will randomly assign some interview, right? And interviewer will not have any specific set of questions given by the company, right? And the company will not even be, not even be worried about what kind of questions the interviewer is asking. So as long as the interviewer can, guess or, you know, uh, evaluate you, the interviewer is free to ask any questions, right? So any questions, there is no restrictions at all in most of the companies. So coming back, so these interviewers will be randomly assigned, so you can't even track the interviewer. And what happens is during interview, the interviewer will be taking notes, okay, notes about you. So what are all the things you're doing, or what are all the mistakes you're doing. So why he or she will be taking notes is after the interview, you should give a note on what happened during the interview, right? What are the things that went well? What are the things that didn't go well, right? And based on that, this interview will give you some vote, right? So this vote will be either you are hired or not hired. I mean, whether you are sorry, not hired or not hired, whether the interviewer himself is inclined or not inclined on your performance. What is inclined? You are good. What is not inclined? Okay, you're not up to the bar, something like that, right? So that will be one vote given by that interviewer, right? So say you have 4 interviews. So these 4 interviews will give 4 votes separately. Then hiring manager will have some rounds if wanted. So he'll also give his own vote, right? Mostly that hiring manager round will be non-technical, right? Mostly like how good a leader you are, how good you are in adapting situation, those kind of things. And the HR and hiring manager will collate all the votes and then come to a conclusion on whether to hire you or not, right? So yeah. So this is what happens behind the scenes. So what I'm saying is a single interviewer's vote does not determine a lot. So what can a hiring manager do is, if one interview is saying that you're not up to the mark, but the other interviews are saying you are really good, the hiring manager can say to the HR saying that I am going to take the risk of hiring this candidate, even though he is not having all the 4 votes, right? So what I'm saying is, even if one interview goes wrong, it doesn't mean the end of the world, right? So that's what I'm trying to say, right? And usually this interview, they'll not see whether you're solving the question or not. They'll see how your thinking patterns, whether you're thinking in the right direction. So most of the times, sometimes what happens is the candidate will be thinking really good. He'll be he'll be thinking along the right directions. He will also be coding, but during coding he might be having some disturbances. So he or she will not be able to complete the code during that 1 hour. Usually most of the time the interviewer will say that he's a good candidate, he can be hired. So if the candidate can code 70% in maybe 20 minutes, given another 10 minutes, he would have completed the code, right? So that's the confidence that candidates has gained because of the way he has thought about the problem, right? So in that case, even if you haven't completed the code, the interview will give you a good code, right? So it's not just about solving the problem, right? So it's much more than that, right? So coming back, yeah, that is one thing which happens internally, right? So it's not a one guy decision; it's more like a collective decision, right? So how are candidates evaluated? As I said, it depends on the interviewer, right? So most of the interviewer will prefer you whether you're thinking along the right direction, whether you're solving the problems, those kind of things. So yeah. So as I said, it's not just an answer; it's an optimal answer, which comes during the approach phase itself, which we'll see in the next session, right? So given a few approaches, how do you know one is optimal over the other, right? So yeah. So how to prepare for interviews? One thing in DS is practice. Okay, DS and Algo is practice. I'll say why. Okay, so I have been doing this for 6 years now. Definitely for the past 2 years, I have not been doing that much actively. But for the first 4 years, I've been doing it very actively. And even then, right, I have cleared only 2 or 3 rounds. I mean, 2 or 3 interviews. The good thing is I go till the last round and get rejected. But the bad thing is I go till the last round and get rejected, right? So it's so frustrating to go through everything and then not get the offer, right? So yeah, so practice is something which will always help you. I have practiced a lot, but nothing is lot unless you are put in a position, right? So yeah, so keep practicing. The good thing is, it's not like one time, right? So after you got into a company, you'll be trying for another company. So in the same company, in the another product-based company, they'll be following a similar pattern. So whatever you read today, it's not going to, be a throwaway reading or something, right? So it's going to be helpful in the future too, right? So yeah, so and second part is, as I said, in this course itself, we'll see, instead of just understanding the concept, we'll see the concept also obviously, but we'll see, given a problem, why we chose that concept and not the other concept, right? So why does it help? So that helps in understanding, as I said, why you did something. How did you think about it? Because at the end of the day, it's that how good your thinking skills are, whether you're thinking in the right direction is the one which matters. If that happens, everything will happen automatically after that, right? So yeah, that's why learning the techniques and ideas behind a problem is much more important than just solving the problem. Yeah, solving the problem is step one, but your your ability to go to the next problem doesn't solve that, right? Doesn't end there, right? What I mean is, once you solve the problem, it doesn't mean that you can solve all the similar types. Why means, unless you understand why you chose that problem, you can't. It's difficult to solve a very similar problem. Why means, in code kata or something, you'll have category, say stack. Once you go into the stack, that that category, you know that that question should be solved using stack. But in interview, you'll get a random question, right? So how do you know you should use stack? So that's where this thinking process comes into picture. So if you know why did you use stack for some question which you solved when you are practicing, the same idea will help you here to understand that, okay, for the same question, I'm having a similar kind of a problem. And since I have similar kind of a problem, I have to use stack here. So these things will happen automatically. Your intuition will say. So when does intuition come into picture? When you have practiced a lot, right? So if you practice a lot, there'll be a pattern in your brain. That pattern will be, executed whenever you see a similar question. And that happens even without you doing anything. So when does that happen? If you have a lot of practice, right? So yeah. So after you solve a problem, you just spend some 5-10 minutes understanding why you did what you did, so that it's like solving 10-20 problems and right? So third is mock interviews. I can't stress this enough because I haven't taken any mock interviews, and that's the reason why I get nervous every time I go into an interview, right? So have a mock interview if you have a friend, if you have someone who's so close, if you have a mentor, or if you don't have anyone, if you're preparing, if you're the only one who's preparing in your friend circle, then what you can do is you can go to these sites called Pramp. I'm not like I haven't used it, but these sites give you some free one-on-one interviews. So what will happen is you'll connect to someone who's preparing for a product-based company around the globe. So you'll be interviewing him or her for 1 hour. He or she will interview you for 1 hour, right? So those kind of things will happen. It's not free. I think first 5-10 is free, but you get the idea, right? So it will help you, get less anxious during the actual interview, right? So whatever you mark during the actual interview, it is going to be anxious because the person is new. But if you take a lot of mock interviews with unknown person, that anxiousness will reduce a bit, right? So yeah, so 4 and 5, I already covered. Five is there are few books, but usually, as I said, since the interviewer is not going to have any restriction on what questions he should ask, these books does not help a lot. I haven't read these books, but someone asked during my previous sessions, so I have added it here, right? So yeah, uh, so keep your questions. I'll just finish the last slide alone, maybe 5 more minutes, and then I'll be open for questions, right? So how to ace an interview? As I said, the interview is there to help you. So think the interviewer as your friend who's listening to your idea, right? So when you talk to your friend, you'll not be worried about whether this approach is right or wrong, right? So you be the same with the interview. So what's the worst that could happen? Maybe the interviewer could judge you, right? But most of the interviews will not judge you. Why means they also came into the company through an interview, right? So they also would have done these same things, right? So there's no room for judgment there. You just say whatever is coming to your mind. Why that will help the interviewer is, interviewer has to write about something, right? Write about you in the portal of something. If you give more points, he'll be able to get an idea on how your thinking process is. And the second thing is he can also give you hints, right? So the more you speak, the more you communicate, the better it's for you, right? The faster you will be hinted towards your right solution, right? Usually the interviewers will give you throw hints at you, so you'll be open for those hints, but that hints come only when you talk out, right? Because interviewer wants to throw the right hints, right? So that right hints comes out only when he understands what you are thinking, right? So don't want the interviewer wants from you. Interviewer wants wants you to be there in the company, right? So think of him as a friend and then discuss whatever is coming to your mind. Okay. So second is I already covered this. This is the pattern I follow, and if you follow this pattern, it will be like exactly 1 hour. You can maybe spend 25 minutes for approach, 15 minutes for coding if you're really good in implementation. If you're not really good in implementation, then you try to strengthen your uh, approach, and then you code it, right? So usually this approach is also kind of an issue. Why means not all approaches can be coded, right? So when you think of an approach, you always think about a codable approach, right? So yeah, but you most of the time that happens. So I'm not stressing it a lot. So and again, right? So this language things comes a lot. So have a strong hold in one language, right? Why I'm saying this is once you get in the company, unlike in service-based company where will be put into specific domain, here there will be not be specific domain. So 1 year you will be doing some web development, another year you will be doing some app development, another year you will be writing backend, another year you will be writing Java, another year you will be writing C++. A lot of things is going to happen. But why this is happening is if you're a good problem solver, then learning a language or picking up a technology is not a very big deal for it. And among everything I told, right, web development, app development, everything, one thing which stands out among everything is how are you going to solve the problem, right? You can write some amazing tech in app, but it's not if it's not going to solve the problem of the customer, the app is not going to be used, right? So whatever UI effort you put or whatever UX effort you put is going to go in vain, right? So yeah, so that's why these product-based companies don't test your domain knowledge because there is no domain, right? So you can switch between teams, you can switch between domains, anything can happen, right? So yeah, so that's why you have a strong only one language and use that language for interviews. And after that, based on the teams, you will be learning languages, right? Maybe you'll be given 1 week, 2 week ramp up in any technology, and after you ramp up, you'll be in the project, right? So yeah, the last thing is interviews are hard, right? So you have a lot of constraints, you have a lot to do within 1 hour, and there's no room for mistakes. But you see the bigger picture, what all kind of responsibilities you are going to get. And as I said, right, so I have a lot of friends who have been trying and who have got into this thing. So for some people, it took only 2 months. For some people, it took 2, 3 years. But the good thing is everyone is in a product-based company right now, right? So and everyone is happy working what they do or doing what they love, right? So yeah, so interviews are hard, but yeah, what you get in return is something which is also really good. So yeah, so this 5 minutes for ambiguities is asking the questions about the question. Intro is not going to get judged, so usually I can talk about what you like doing. Keep it technical. You can just say if you're a college student, you can just say where you're studying and what you like doing technically. Maybe if you like app development, you can say something like that. Or you can talk about some projects. If you're experienced, then you can talk about whatever you're doing in the current company or in the previous company. Right? So yeah. Okay, so with this, I'm closing whatever I wanted to cover. So I'm open for questions. Uh, so I'll just quickly, you just keep posting your questions in the chat, or if you can open your mic, then also great. But yeah, just keep going over the question in the chat section from the start. Okay. Uh, okay, in coding, where we use algorithms and DS. Okay, so inside the company, you'll not be using like core algorithm or DS, but you got an idea, right? It's not just learning algorithm and DS. Algorithm analysis is just a way to understand how good a problem solver you are, right? So yeah, if there is another way to test your problem solving ability, you'll be a good problem solver there too, because you're a good problem solver at the core, right? So, so I can't help you with code data problems because I mean I haven't seen it personally, but what I can do is I'll share my number if you guys want. Uh, uh, so you see, I don't want to just finish 5 courses and then get lost, right? Not like that. I really want you guys to want to learn a lot from you guys as well. So I'll just share my number, but don't add me to any group and don't call me personally. But if you have any doubts, you ping me on WhatsApp. I just reply whenever I get time. If it sounds okay, right? So yeah. I'll just quickly go over the question. Give me 1 minute. So is it better to go to a service-based company for a fresher? No, as I said, right? So it depends on what you want, what as personally you want. Whether you want to take a lot of responsibilities, yes, a product-based company is the way to go. So yeah, if you want a clear set of responsibilities, but there's no like single rule, right? So even in service-based company, there can be a mix of responsibilities if the client is not really handling you well. And the same thing in product-based company, the management product team can be really good, so that there'll be proper set of responsibilities, right? So for a given task, is it better to make a code with advanced concepts, or is it going to make it bigger? It depends on the question, but one thing which I personally take is if a new guy can come and see my code and understand without any comments, then I'll prefer that code always. Right. So yeah. Okay. So okay, so how a project is distributed to a team and what will junior engineer do that, right? So usually the thing goes something like this. So say you have a very big design, okay? So usually the cadre goes something like this. A junior engineer, mid-level engineer, senior engineer, principal engineer, senior principal engineer. And this is a very high level cadre. Within these cadre, there can be multiple cadres as well, right? So what does the junior engineer do is they just do coding. They just implement someone's design, right? What does this mid-level engineer do is they just design a small piece of the entire product. Say Google Photos itself will have say 1,000 engineers, not that much, but yeah, 500 engineers, maybe 50 teams. In that 50 teams, there'll be one team which is focusing on finding the people's face, right? Finding people's face and putting them into a folder. There can be 2-3 teams. In that among these 2-3 teams, there'll be senior engineer or a principal engineer who is going to work only on this, right? So he'll just say what all the new features, what all high level you can do, right? And among these 3 teams, there'll be senior engineer in each of these teams. What does the senior engineer do? They design the piece which is allocated to them, right? The mid-level engineer, and within that allocated piece, there can be multiple small pieces, which will be abstracted by the senior engineer. So the small abstracted piece, this mid-level engineer will take and make it clear, right? So there the design work leaves. The junior engineer will just implement the design. Right. So yeah, so that's how the cadre looks like. But yeah, you can Google for better understand. What other companies other than FANG should we target? Any startup, any product-based company, any startup, anything, right? Any product-based company is good. But yeah, you will be having your own domain thing, right? Say if you're really interested in maps or something, then you know where to go. If you're really interested in maybe I don't know, maybe photos or something, videos or something, then you know where to go, right? So you can go to Google, you can think about going to startups or companies which focus on photos, photo processing, etc. Right? So, this is a very good question. So while working, you are allowed to use internet, but in interview, why is it not allowed? Again, right, it's not just solving the problem. So you can see the internet, anyone can see the internet and solve a problem, but how you are thinking. That problem is just a way to understand your thinking process, not whether you're solving or not. So that's why even if you use an internet, it's not going to help you, right? So that problem is just a way to understand your thinking process. If you use the internet to give the solution, uh, there is no use for both of you, right? So everyone knows that there's a solution in the internet, but how you are thinking, that's the only thing which matters. Okay. So usually the freshers will not be asked a system design, but there are some exceptions. Say Uber will ask system design, one round of system design even for freshers. But why they don't ask system design for freshers is system design is something which you can't trade it in house, right? Unlike data structures and algorithms. There's another you can practice. A system design is something which unless you design yourself, you can't really get the thing. So usually it will be asked for the next level engineers from the next level engineers, and the system design will increase as you grow in your career. Right? So if you are a senior engineer, there'll be much more vague design. If you are a principal engineer, then there'll be much more vague design, something like that. Right? So yeah. Any tips for intro? As I said, you can just say whatever you're working with and something. So do we need to solve advanced programming lead code to get a job? Advanced, I don't know what I think you mean by advanced data science algorithms. As I said, right. So depending on the interviewer. So the interviewer is preferring that, then you should know this. But yeah, you get the idea, right? So best platform, there's no best platform. I think Codekata is a very good platform. If you go through everything, you'll understand, right? So if you go through other platforms available and Codekata, you'll get an idea on how good Codekata is. So you can continue with Codekata. But yeah, there are a lot of platforms and nothing is best, right? So I like something, my friend likes something. My friend is also at Amazon, I'm also at Amazon, right? So you get the idea, right? So yeah, there are many questions in Codekata. How should we filter making most of it, right? So after some time, if you are confident that given a question, you can come up with an approach and solve it and code it, you can skip that question. You get the idea. You need not solve all the question. So after some time, if you are confident that, okay, given a question, I can solve it, you just think about some approach. And if you're confident that you can also code it, you just go to internet or go to some resources and confirm that whatever your thought process is the right way to go. If those two are matching, then it's okay. You can skip the question. You get the idea, right? So once you solve few questions, after that you'll be skipping a lot of questions, right? You'll get that idea. Like you'll know what to do there. So you'll not be, and don't solve very easy questions because you're not going to learn a lot from it. So you can take some questions where it's not too hard, too easy to follow, right? So yeah. So how different is placement process of GUI? So I'm not actually attached to GUI in any way. I'm just a mentor here. So I think this question is I'm not aware, right? I think I've answered this. System design for freshers depending on the company, but mostly no. Okay, so LinkedIn profile I don't usually share because I have a lot of connections already. I'll share my phone number instead. Right. Is it somewhat easy to crack service-based company? I'm not really sure. Depends, right? So yeah. Is it possible for a fresher to be assigned high-level role? No. They have a experience level. So the question is, sorry, the question was a direct message. So the question was, is it possible for a fresher to be assigned a higher role than if the interview performance is really good? If you are having a minimum requirement, then yes. So they'll be having some minimum requirement. Say 2 years for the next level, minimum 2 years. If you're having minimum 2 years and if your performance is up to that bar, then they'll hire you, but not the other way around. Yeah, if you have a knowledge on DSA, mostly what you can do is you can pick up other languages easily because I was not aware in JavaScript. I picked up JavaScript in a very short time for this course, right? So you get the idea. Is career break a problem for getting a job? Usually no, if you have a very good justification. Usually it's not a very good, it's not an issue if you have a career break. Does the age? No, age does not matter. What relevant experience you have, that's the only thing that matters. There can be junior engineers who are at 30 also. There can be junior engineers who are at 22 also, right? So yeah. Will they ask OS networking databases? Yes, but the focus will not be that much on those. OS networking databases, you can just brush up and then, you're good to go. Does education background? No. One thing which I wanted to cover is that someone asked, does educational background matter? No, it does not matter. To be honest, once you get an interview, your resume itself does not matter. So once you get an interview, what you do on that day, that's the only thing that matters, even if your resume does not matter once you get an interview. What will be a scope of US? I'm not really sure. So yeah, which language are most preferred? As I said, right? So once you are a good problem solver, picking up a language should not be a very difficult process for you. So nothing is good, nothing is bad. But as I said, if you already know one of these C, C++, Java, JavaScript, Python, then you are safe. So what I mean by safe is what happens is this first round, right? Coding round. Some companies prefer a very not so famous coding site, and these not so famous coding sites does not, have a support for all the languages. If it is HackerRank, then obviously it supports most of the languages. But if it is not so famous coding site, then it will not support all the languages. So yeah. 8 years experience in teaching. I'm not really sure, but yeah, if you teaching, I don't think it counts, I guess. But yeah, depends. You can talk to these things to HR. So yeah. So among these mentioned languages, no, nothing is best, right? As I said, nothing is best. So I will say C++ is best because I started with C++. If you ask someone, he'll say JavaScript is best because he would have started with JavaScript, right? So yeah, nothing is best. As long as you can implement your ideas in code, in any code, it's fine. So yeah. Yeah, you can use built-in functions in coding, provided the solution itself is not the built-in function. So what do I mean by that? Say if the solution itself is sorting, you can't obviously use sorting function. But if the solution involves sorting as one of the piece, you can use the built-in function. You get what I'm trying to say? Okay, how you learn data structure? How long did it took? So I learned theory. I was a competitive programmer. So for people who are, I started in college itself. So I was a competitive programmer. So data algorithms, I learned it for competitive programming. And yeah, that kind of helped me to get a job interview as well. I did it because I liked it. So I didn't, think a lot about how much it will take, what all. I didn't have any goal at all, right? So that's the one thing which I. So nothing is master, right? Even today, it's not like you know, right? So you can never master an art. So I see various and algo as an art, right? So yeah, so master no, but to get a bit proficient depends on you. So how much time and how much effort you put. There's no fixed time, as I said, right? So some people get it in 1 month, 1 month, some people get it after 2 years, depends, right? So persistence is one thing that I carried out because I was not really lucky, right? So yeah. Sources to learn data success, Google. You just Google whatever you want to learn, you'll get a lot of sources, then you choose. Because one source is not like ideal for everything. So something will be good in some sites, something will be really bad in those sites. So you just Google will give you the best results. You just take those results, right? So job security depends on the company. Some companies prefer keeping people longer. Some companies prefer firing people and hiring new people. Depends. What platform did I use? I think I started with CodeChef. After that, I went to Code Forces, but I have profile in everything, and I do kind of a mix and match. Okay, I have a few things to do. I'll just share the slide link. Uh, Share the slide link. Okay, that is one thing. Second is there's a feedback form I have to share with you guys. I'll also share so that I don't miss it. Third thing is uh, okay. Third thing is yeah. As I told, whenever you have any doubts, so you can ping me on WhatsApp. I'll try to help. Uh, as I said, right. So it's not just I don't want to just finish this session without by just finishing all these 5 classes. So yeah, let's have it more like a discussion thing, but don't add me to any group. I think it's against. So when I got stuck in any problem, I usually think for some time. That sometime depends on every person. For me, it's 1 hour. So I'll think for 1 hour. If I don't get it, I'll go and see the approach alone. Once I get the approach, I'll try to code it myself. Even if I'm not able to code it myself, I'll see someone's approach and then I'll try to mimic their coding. And after that, I'll go and search these kind of problems which are similar to that and try to solve it. So after maybe if I solve 10, 20 problems, I'll kind of get an idea on how this problem is going, why we are using this. After that, if I get any problem, obviously I'll not be able to share it right away. I mean, solve it right away. But over time, I'll be able to add that into a maybe I'll be able to solve it better. Okay. So I have attached feedback form. Please fill in. I'll again attach it so that you don't miss it. So this will give you attendance, I guess. But yeah, this feedback will also help me get. Yeah. So please fill in this feedback form. So yeah, if you have any doubts, you can stay back. If you don't have any doubts, you can drop off. Anyway, you have my number, right? So yeah. So yeah, thank you everyone for attending. If you don't have any doubts, you can feel free to drop off. And yeah, you can always contact me, right? So yeah, thank you everyone.